The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar all about what makes a world-class service desk. And we're going to hear from our actual service desks themselves who are 5-star certified today, which is brilliant, and they can tell us all about what it is that makes them world-class. Thanks for joining us. Please do get involved and post your questions at any time. We'll address as many as we can of those at the end. So hosting today and telling us a little bit about what world-class means in terms of SDI's Service Desk Standard is our Chief Value Officer here at SDI, David Wright. Hi, Dave.
Hello, Zoe. Thank you.
Thanks for hosting today. And I will let you take straight over and I believe you'll introduce our presenters as well. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Zoe. No, it's always a pleasure to these. It's brilliant to get to talk to real-life practitioners and listen to their stories, so it's all good. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and welcome to the webinar. And as Zoe has mentioned, my name is David Wright. I'm very lucky enough to work for Service Desk Institute, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. And as it says there, today we'll be finding out what a world-class service desk looks like and talking to representatives from CGI and O2 Telefonica, who are both currently rated as 5-star world-class service desks through SDI's Service Desk Certification Program. We're joined by Lyssa Edwards, Service Desk Operations Manager at CGI. Hi, Lyssa.
Hi, David. Hi, all.
Hi. And we're also joined by Naveed Majid, Service Operations Manager at O2 Telefonica. Hi, Naveed.
Hi, David. Hello, everybody.
Hi, thank you, guys. So Lyssa and Naveed will be giving us an insight into how their IT service operation achieved the world-class status, and hopefully we'll get a chance to pick up some practical tips and inspirational ideas to help plan your own service improvement journey. If you have any questions at any point through today's webinar, please post them in the panel. We'll try and fit those in during the discussions or at the end of today's webinar. Before we do chat to the guys, though, a few slides about SDI's International Best Practice Standard and Service Desk Certification, which can help to support the service desk function, drive continual service improvement, and create business value. As we know, there are a number of best practice standards and frameworks out there that support the governance and delivery of IT services and IT service management. They help to offer guidance on how to put all the stuff that IT does together into some form of structure and how to create a defined service. And many of those standards and frameworks include details on service desk operations, best practice, but none of them are specifically designed for the function of the service desk. And that's where SDI's best practice standard comes in. As we know, the service desk is one of, if not the most important parts of your organization. So what is the best practice standard? Well, Service Desk, SDI's Service Desk Best Practice Standard is a globally recognized open source free best practice standard for service desk and IT support. It's a very comprehensive and robust measure of service capability and service excellence, and it's been created with the support of industry experts, leading IT best practice organizations, IT trainers, IT consultants, IT practitioners, and IT service management software developers. It's an open source roadmap, really, for creating a world-class service desk and IT support capability. The standard complements Itil and ISO 20000, and it provides a clear set of measurable benchmarks for service desk operations, many of which are not included in Itil or ISO 20000, but are obviously extremely important to the service desk. The SDI's best practice standard what it actually does is contextualizes best practice for the service desk function, providing information on how to apply best practice operationally at the service desk. And this is the latest version of the best practice standard. The standard is reviewed refreshed every 3 years, and this version was released in September 2016. Let's take a quick look, if we can, at where Itil and SDI's best practice standard are complementary. So if we look at that, and hopefully you can see that, those little red squares there, that's service strategy. So that's financial management and business relationship management. Then we've got service design. So that's service catalog, service level management, availability and capacity management, business continuity and disaster recovery, security management, and supplier management. There's service transition. So that's change management, service asset and configuration management, release and deployment. Service operations, so that's incident management, request fulfillment, problem management, event management, and identity management. and service reporting and service measurement, a big block of performance data, best practice listed there, guidance on what to measure in the service desk, and of course information about continual service improvement. Now there's an awful lot more best practice guidance in the standard, all of which helps to support service and operational definition, so it can be controlled, measured and improved. And other areas relating to the criteria and the concepts are also the likes of alignment with business outcomes, leadership competencies, promoting the service desk, recruitment, onboarding, skills development, talent management, integrated systems, knowledge management, security and employee engagement, just to name a few. So as you can see, very comprehensive. And what's more, you can also become certified against the SDI Best Practice Standard through SDI's Service Desk Certification Program. Service Desk Certification offers a structure to support the recognition of alignment to best practice and the commitment to service excellence by becoming certified. And Service Desk Certification is a certification program measured against SDI's Best Practice Standard, is specifically designed to certify the capability and quality of service desk and IT support. Certification is an acknowledgement that a company's service desk operation meets global industry standards and indicates compliance to best practice. The program also acts as an indicator of ITSM maturity and capability, identifying key areas for improvement and development. It's a driver for continual service improvement and the opportunity to adopt and align with industry best practice. So our two guests today achieved a very high standard rating during the program, achieving consecutive 4-star ratings, which enabled them both to challenge for 5-star world-class status. Now, there's more information about SDI's standard, the Service Desk Standard, and certification on SDI's website. Okay, so our first guest, Lyssa Edwards from CGI. Again, thank you for joining us, Lyssa. Could you start by giving us an introduction about who you are, what you do, and then maybe some more insight about CGI and CGI UK's Service Desk, please? Don't forget, listeners, if you have any questions, post them in the panel. Lyssa.
Thanks, David. Yes, of course I can. So as David said, my name's Lyssa Edwards. I'm a Director of Consulting Delivery for CGI, and I work within the operations team. So CGI is a global IT outsourcing company, and we span across a variety of industries. So this can include utilities, health, government and commercial as some examples. Our service desk is split between 2 sites due to the size of it. So we are responsible for 350 agents, which will be increasing to 400 in 2018 as a result of a lucky new contract that we've managed to bring in. We do cover over 180 contracts at the moment. And as part of that, we're looking out for client expectations, focusing on member welfare, and then looking for continual service improvements and innovations in the technical space. We are very lucky to have several dedicated teams such as recruitment, compliance, quality, training, and I can go on. I'm more than happy to pick that up in some of the questions. And we, of course, work very closely then with our problem management team, change, incident, all of which help us very much on our CGI journey.
Do you want the next slide, Lyssa?
Yes, if you could, please.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So this is something that I thought a visual aid would be more appropriate for, and this is something that we focus on mainly as part of our staff engagement. And it's a concept called gamification. So this is a rewards-based portal, and this feeds in not only to an analyst's KPI data, but it also gives them an opportunity to be recognised and rewarded for ad hoc things. They can also be recognised by other members within their own teams or within the wider teams throughout CGI, so it's a very powerful tool. It gets over 1,300 hits a week, so it's very popular, and at the end of the month they will get a pot of points that they can then go forward and use to redeem a prize, as you'd say. So this is an example of what the screen would look like, and sorry Dave, if you could just pop onto the next slide for me.
No worries.
Thank you. This is an example of what they would see when they open a screen. So we can create news stories, articles, quizzes, and we can sort of, as part of the quizzes, we can have a bit of fun with it, so it doesn't have to be KPI driven. So as an example, with Christmas coming up, we've recently done a 12 Days of Christmas challenge, and each day they have to put something on the portal that they find relevant to Christmas. So, for example, day one was what is the best Christmas song, and it just gets everybody involved. It gets them in the right spirit. It keeps morale high, and it gets them really engaged in what we're doing for when we do have to do work-related articles and quizzes. It's a very powerful platform, and one that they're more used to seeing in the social media space. So it's good to have the visual should we get any questions on that later on.
Good, thank you. And that's a nice overview of what you do, and I think certainly to understand the amount of time and effort to manage a service of 300 analysts, 180 content, you can imagine the complexities around that too. I was wondering, how long has CGI UK been in the SDC program, Lyssa?
So we started in the program in 2010. And we went through the initial 3-star audit and then decided that we'd like to go for the 4-star certification in April 2011, which we were awarded. And the 4-star audit gave us a really good grounding where we were as an organisation, and it allowed us to review the gaps in the process and what criteria we needed to focus on to step that up to the 5-star. So after retaining the 4-star, we then decided that we were going to go for the 5-star in December 2012, and we were successful. We've retained that since, and we also did a re-accreditation of the 4-star criteria last year in December, just to make sure that we were keeping up with that standard criteria as well.
Yeah,
it's been 8 years now.
Wowie. I mean, it's an awful lot, a long time to be involved in such a program, which is brilliant actually, because I'm assuming it gives you an awful lot of value back into the organisation as well. Well, I suppose if you look at that 5-star, a lot of people will be probably thinking about what all that means. 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. Through the SDI program, so the SDC program, what have been the main or the key improvements or focus areas that have helped you to reach 5-star?
So for us, we've always looked at the wow factor, and I think that's the aspect of the 5-star that everybody gets a little bit concerned on, because there's always an element of a challenge in that. But we've always focused on making sure that our people are consistent, that they're passionate, they're very hardworking, that they understand what it is they're being asked to do and why. So we're very transparent and open with our communication. We give them a reason, and we make them understand the client's business. So, for example, we've got within some of our health sectors people who work on A&E accounts. So we sent them to the A&E departments. So it's making sure that they've got a very clear insight into the client's business. And then when they're answering calls, they've got a very fresh and professional perspective on it, and they understand the client's challenges as well. So that's always been a really important aspect for us. Yeah,
I bet, especially with all those clients to manage. Absolutely. And I suppose understanding what it means to be world class, and I'll come on to another couple of questions shortly. But what does it mean to CGI to be a world class service desk?
Well, it's really interesting for us, because obviously we've got an internal and an external aspect to this. So internally, there's such a sense of pride from not just the service desk team, but the wider teams who work in collaboration with us, because it's a recognition of our hard work, and it's an understanding of how much we actually achieve in a 12-month period, which can be very difficult sometimes. When you're in the process of it, you don't understand how much you can actually do in 12 months. And then obviously externally, sort of for use with existing and new clients. For existing clients, it shows that we're continuing to maintain that high standard and look for innovation. And then for new clients, it's a way of us validating what we believe to be true, but it's validated on an external level. So it's been phenomenal to get that type of feedback.
And I think you're right. I mean, you've made that point. That validation, that external validation. I suppose in any case, it's a very important thing. Certainly, I suppose if you've got that many direct customers, it's even more important to be able to validate that level of expertise, I suppose. And I bet I've not looked at any of the questions that we've had coming through yet, but I bet our listeners will want to know what your service desk does differently, what makes you world class. So we've heard a lot about the pride, the recognition, and the people, clear understanding and the passionate stuff and the transparency, which is great. What differentiates you across people, process, and technology maybe that other service desks may not have?
Yeah, so we're very lucky, as I said earlier. We've got a lot of dedicated teams, so it means that the processes that we've got in place are very mature. And once they mature, it means that, of course, they can be continually improved because we've got a very stable platform to work from. So we can always focus on the right output for our customers. And as you said, with the technology aspect, we're obviously looking for continual improvement in the technology space. So gamification as an example, that's a very powerful tool that we can use to our staff members. But then to our clients, we can look at aspects like queue story, we can look at robotics, we're looking at automation, we're looking at that technological space, so that when our clients come in and say, oh, haven't you got cars that are driving themselves in the car park yet? We can say, no, we're not quite there, but actually this is what we're doing, and this is what we're recognizing is developing with the technological age. So we've got a lot of interesting things that are not only in space now, but will be in the next 12 months. Amelia, as an example, is a speech analytics. So this is something that our customers may not be familiar with yet, but they're hearing the keywords and they're seeing the news articles, and they want to know how we're developing with that.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point, actually. I think you're right. I think different organizations have different key drivers, you know, and certainly from an MSP perspective, to differentiate, to understand the up and coming trends and to develop services to support those as they're procured by customers are very, very important in it. And that's really, really interesting. I bet there'll be a few questions about what that actually means to CGI. And coming back maybe to the whole premise of a 5-star service, right? What do you think are the types of ingredients that make a 5-star service?
So when we always, I've done a couple of sort of speeches and seminars on this within the SDI, and we always break it down into some sort of key categories. So we look at our customer satisfaction and engagement. We look at our company growth, so where our financial stability is and where our growth is likely to be within the next 5 years. So it's about looking at not just what's in front of you now, but where you want as an organization to go within a 5 and 10 year period. It's looking at your staff, your culture, engaging those members, continuous service improvement, as I said. It's looking at your champions in key areas, so looking for your points of contact across your teams, knowing your strengths, knowing your areas of improvement, because it's very easy for people to think that a 5-star service desk would have no areas of improvement, but actually it's looking how you can develop new areas coming in on a month-by-month basis. And then it's looking at that roadmap area, so where are we developing on a technology level month on month. So it's sort of the client, your staff, and then yourself as a company and where you see your vision going.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It sounds as if it's quite coordinated. It sounds as if it's quite strategic, and that information is fed through, you know, through the management layers into the organization. I noticed actually recently I saw some information about CGI being a top employer in the UK for 2017. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, what is I noticed it, and I just wondered what that actually meant. You know, as a person working in CGI, what does it mean? So, from a 5-star perspective, what does that mean for somebody? And also, what does it mean for somebody in the organisation? So, in a 5-star, you know, 5-star world-class service, you'd expect to be able to keep people in jobs and promote people and develop people. What does that mean then? What does that mean to be a top employer in 2017?
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal achievement, and for us, we're always looking to keep our knowledge in-house. So by looking after our staff who are on service desk, they'll then go through to some of our support and resolver teams, and they'll continue to support our clients in a more focused, aged manner. So it gives us stability in different areas within CGI. It shows us that our staff are happy and that we're continuing to develop on the key areas that they bring to us. So we've got something called an Empath Survey, which our staff complete every year, member satisfaction program, and they're basically giving us their ideas on how they think we can improve. So we're not just looking at it from a manager perspective, but we're actually getting their engagement and involvement, and that's similar to what we did on gamification. We asked them what they wanted to see in the boutique, because we wanted to make sure that it was driving the demographic that we have. So yeah, it's been vital, and I think when the client can come in and see that your staff are happy and that they're passionate and that they're looking to develop within that business, and that actually they're going to still be supporting that client, but in 10 years' time in a far more senior position, they're far more comfortable and confident in us as an organisation.
Yeah, I bet, and that makes total sense. And I think there's a key actually to some of the stuff you said. People has been something that's resonated throughout the conversation, which is which is an obvious one, but I think sometimes forgotten in the sort of heat of delivering services on frontline. One question I had also was about the process again, and how you've managed to use that to promote or publicize what you've done, and what the reaction has been like, both internally and externally as well.
Yeah, so it's something that we always make a really big fuss over advertising on an internal and external level. So internally, there's always a lot of celebrations on Service Desk. It's very visual throughout the Service Desk as well, so people can see what they achieved. They'll all get an individual thank you, and not just from myself, but from the VPs. They'll come down and personally thank people on the floor, and we'll have sort of photo takes and things like that. So it is a very, very positive message to send out. And then externally, obviously having that stamp of approval when a new contract comes in, and you're looking at the bidding process, our clients see that, and it really makes a difference, because when there's sort of minimal 5-star service desks in the world at the moment, they want to know what you've done to stand out. So that's a really positive story where we can say, well, come and visit us, and we can actually show you everything that we've done up until that stage. So it encourages them to come in-house then and see what we've done.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. And I suppose the next question leading on for that, from your personal perspective as as part of this machine, that very, very well-oiled machine, what is your experience of going through the Service Desk certification program? What sort of value have you derived from it, as you've aligned with some of that best practice? Yeah, so what's that experience like? What's it been like for you and maybe the team as well?
Well, it's always interesting when it comes around, and we can't say it's easy, because obviously it is an auditing process, so you want to challenge and push yourself. And if it was easy, I'm sure that it would be a far easier process to go through from start to finish. But do you know what? We always see such a sense of pride in our teams at the end of it, because we understand that the effort and the training that we're putting in on a yearly basis is coming to fruition, and actually they are able to answer the questions, they are able to see their own development and progress. And one comment that we get from the SDI every year is that every time they come, somebody seems to have progressed into a higher, more senior role. So it's always a very positive, very powerful sort of auditing process for us to go through, and to realise how actually embedded we are with the SDI now, and how much we look to adhere our own policies with theirs. So as we're going through the year, we'll be looking through their criteria to see how we're going to evidence this when it comes to December. So it's a very powerful tool for us to make sure that we're keeping on track. Good.
All right, well, our time up together is just coming to an end briefly. Now, what I will ask, and hopefully we'll get some more of these types of questions from the audience, from the listeners, are some more practical tips, right, at the end of this. I really want to understand from both yourself and Nav, really, some practical stuff that people can go away with, right? Your thoughts on how to approach service capability, to improve service capability across anywhere. We've talked about people, which has been very important, so other areas too. So just think about that, and I'll ask a couple of questions about that later. Thank you very much. I mean, certainly that's given us an indication to the level required to be a world-class service, which is fantastic. So thank you for that, Lyssa. Next, we're going to move on to Nav. And actually, look, I've missed that slide. What a shame. What a shame. Look at that slide. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds. That's a few shots of the team. I think, Lyssa, in CGI in South Wales. Is that right?
It is, yes. That's some of the charity and community ambassador days that we've done, which I can answer some questions on later on if needed.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm sure they're, again, you know, looking at all those, I think they're Christmas presents. Are they in the middle there, maybe?
Yes, they are. They're as part of our Bernardo's appeal. So yeah, that's been a recent appeal for us, and it's been brilliant.
Excellent. We may come back to that because, again, I can see a lot there about being bold for change and a lot of thoughts on sort of women in IT too, which is quite interesting as well. And again, it just, you know, broadens that scope of what it is to be inclusive, but also world class when you look at diversity inclusion too. So thank you for that. Apologies for missing that slide out actually. Great. Well, Naveed, our next guest, Naveed Majid from O2 Telefonica. Thank you again for joining us today. Naveed, again, in the same light, it'd be great if you could give us an introduction, something about yourself, what you do, and how long you've been doing it, maybe, and then some more insight into O2 Telefonica and your service desk, please. And again, please, guys, any questions in the audience, if you'd like to ask them, they'd be most appreciative. Over to you, Naveed.
Thanks, David. Good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, I'm the Senior Service Operations Manager within Telefonica Service Desk. My remit is basically continual improvement across the whole of internal service operations. That includes service desk, it includes compliance, it includes the change integration team, and a few others. So Telefonica itself, I'm sure you've heard of O2 UK. If you haven't heard of Telefonica, Telefonica is the parent company. It's a Spanish company. We have a lot of presence in South America, in Europe, and obviously in the UK. The service desk team itself consists of around 50 people. We're nowhere as big as Lyssa's team. I don't know how we would handle all those people, but yeah, we're a much smaller team. We service our internal colleagues along with third parties that we deal with from a call center perspective. We sit within the service operations department. Traditionally, you find service desks sit within the IT department, but we operate slightly differently because we believe that service is the key here. And the service operations team is purely focused on delivering the right service for our customers. So that's a bit of a background of who I am and who we are as a company, David. Excellent,
thank you, Naveed. And you're absolutely right. You know, obviously, again, a very well-known brand, Telefonica O2. Funnily enough, Naveed, we're doing an awful lot of work in Latin America at the minute. We're growing the community there, and we've done a couple of conferences which have been absolutely brilliant. And you're absolutely right. You know, Telefonica has been. You know, they've been involved in that as well. We're trying to do a lot of work with them out there, which is great. But 50 people, you know, I mean, that's still a sizable team, irrespective, I think, and it's good to see that two very different organisations are involved in this program. So you can see the inclusiveness in that. It's any shape, any size, and any sector and industry, which is all pretty good. So we've got the same set, roughly the same set of questions, I think, Naveed, and there may be a slightly similar flavour, but I'm sure there'll be maybe different perspectives. I don't know. So how long has O2 Telefonica Service Desk actually been in the certification program?
Again, the same as CGI, who started in 2010. We've got our first, obviously we went through the 3-star audit just to establish a baseline of where we stood against the standards. We achieved, the following year we achieved the 4-star certification, and after getting 4-star for a couple of years, we then achieved our first 5-star certification in 2013, I believe, and we've been 5-star since.
Excellent. And it's quite coincidental, that, isn't it? It's very similar timelines, and I think you both achieved 3-star at the first certification audit, which is really good going. Actually, it's a very robust process. And I suppose, yeah, talking about the process itself, what has that meant to you then? So you've been involved through this process and through this experience. Tell us more about your experience of going through that process and what it's been like for you.
Yeah, personally for me, it's been an eye opener for me, because I started the first review when you guys came in 2010. I was part of the analyst team, and as we've progressed through consecutive reviews, my career's progressed as well, to the point now I'm actually in charge of the whole area as such from a service operations perspective. And part of that career change has been driven from the continual improvements that were identified in baselining and understanding the best practices through the audit process, and that's helped me to implement those continual improvements, and along with implementing those, grow my career at the same time.
So and that's really interesting. Again, I think you mentioned there about using the standard to not only define service but define career opportunities as well. So again, it's very similar. If you both take into account that you both have you both examples of organizations that develop people, which is so this is again another resonator, I suppose, isn't it? People development and I think change by the looks of things as well. So continual change around people moving into positions and developing their careers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I mean, my first move was to a continual improvement manager role, and that sort of tells you the focus that we placed on continual improvement. And I mean, the people journey is a must in the SDI process. I think people have to feel included and engaged in the process, and they need to feel like they have a stake in it. And by helping them understand what those best practices are and helping them to adopt them and basically implement them and change our way of working is something that's really key here. I think the people element we keep coming back to, but that is the key.
Yeah, very interesting actually. And again, Lyssa talked about CSI as a thing as well. You know, I think certainly when we go into organizations, we see a raft of different types of organizations. And some of the better ones, continuous service improvement is cultural. It's something that's in everybody. It's something that, it's something that sort of everybody lives and breathes. So that's quite interesting too, that there's a people and CSI sort of crossover between the two organizations.
Absolutely.
So I suppose the same question really. I mean, our listeners again would be very interested to know what your service desk does differently and what makes them what makes you world class. How do you differentiate across people, process, technologies? What makes you
I think the differentiator for me and for the team is that relentless focus on continual improvement. I think it's about understanding from the SDI standards and from your peers and what good looks like, and then taking that, implementing, adopting it to your own environment, but taking it one step further. Now, the example I can give you is when we started off on this journey, we didn't really have much focus around continual improvement, but throughout going through the audits, we actually established a continual improvement capability, which has got quite a wide remit and authority and backing from senior management to help drive those key improvements, not just across service operations or service desk, but have a wider remit to impact more business processes. For example, from an identity management perspective, we want to streamline the whole process for new joiners, and that's something that the service desk is leading on. So yeah, that whole focus on continual improvement and making sure people are passionate about submitting what they think are improvements, because you want to get that feel from the ground on what needs improving. So getting the people along on the journey and really pushing the continual improvement process.
That's really interesting. Again, you mentioned people submitting ideas, which and openly listening and adopting some of that, which again, Lyssa mentioned too. And you use the term relentless focus on CSI. And again, using the standard to literally create that culture, literally create an approach to CSI through using the criteria. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, David. I think from a process perspective, the continual improvement is the driving force. I mean, the impact it has on is, from a people perspective, it helps to change the culture. And it becomes a culture where people feel comfortable in coming forward with continual improvements, comfortable in taking part in not only recognizing what our weak areas are, but on suggesting how we move forward and improve those as well. And then I think it's then up to the management community to take those continual improvement initiatives and look at investing in them from a tools perspective, which is exactly where we're going with especially our identity management capability.
Interesting, yeah, really interesting actually. So if you look at one of the world-class principles is success, yeah, and I think probably being two slightly different organizations, you're going to have a different perspective on what success means to O2 Telefonica. So what is that? What is success? What key successes have the service desk achieved through world-class service? And you may have alluded to that already with the creation of this culture. What does it actually meant internally to the organization? What has it supported you doing internally?
Yeah, so traditionally a service desk function in such a large corporate environment as Telefonica O2 UK is seen as a cost base. And I think it's helped us to raise the profile of the service desk and articulate to the business the value that we deliver. And I think that's important for such a small team in a large organization to kind of have a really high profile, and the 5-star certification is used not only by us but by the wider service management community to demonstrate that we are adhering to world-class principles. So yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, that's cool. Now you mentioned as well, right, that sort of cross-functional sort of thing, so the capability not only within the desk but utilizing the standard and the push towards 5-star to cross-functionally improve the organization and relationships as well. Has it helped, or is a 5-star service desk a driver for collaboration as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're the internal service desk. We have other consumer-facing service desks as well, who we've worked closely with and shared our best practices and knowledge that we've gained by going through the audit process, and that's helped them to improve as well. So we definitely, it helps to drive that cross-functional collaboration.
Really interesting. And I'm going to ask you some questions asked Lyssa just before we finish in this segment, I think. What types of key ingredients make a 5-star service desk, Naveen? What do you think makes a 5-star service desk?
I think I'm going to stick with one, David. For me, it's all about the customer. I'm making sure you really listen to what your customer is telling you. I mean, we have 2 measures around customer satisfaction. One of them is just customer satisfaction. The other one is customer very satisfied. And we focus very much on not just how satisfied they are, but how we can get them from satisfied to very satisfied. And that helps you to differentiate between a normal good service desk and a world-class service desk. I mean, just to give you an example, we run on around 65 to 70% of our customers are very satisfied, not just satisfied with our service. And that's the thing. We listen to what the customers want. We help the team to understand what the customers are telling us, and we implement any kind of continual improvements that are required on the back of feedback that we get from customers.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you're in effect, even though, I think a lot of organizations harness the frameworks out there, best practice frameworks, which is great because it helps to define stuff. You're being driven by the requirements of the end user. You're listening, and you're actually putting stuff into action that you can legitimately say they've considered and you've delivered. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, all of our continual improvement initiatives, we do a benefit analysis at the end of them, and then we go back to the customers who may have suggested those to just say, look, you asked and we did.
Excellent. Good. Now, we're almost at the end of our chat, guys, on this section, and we're going to be slowly moving into questions from the audience. I'm hoping we've got a few that have come through. But just to recap on what I think I've heard so far today, which is great, because there are synergies. Do you know what? I hate the word synergies, but there are synergies. There are very similar stuff going on. So we talked about people, we talked about passionate, we talked about transparency and communications, we talked about pride and recognition for hard work. We talked about mature processes, and we talked about customer satisfaction, and engagement, customer engagement. We talked very clearly about CSI, and I think Naveed does a brilliant, brilliant comment about the relentless focus on CSI. And we also talked about articulating value, being able to articulate value to the customer and to the business as well. And we talked about cross-functional collaboration, and customer focus again was a very clear piece. So that's quite a melting pot, I think, of stuff to be focused on. And I think some of that passion has certainly come through in what I've heard, which is fantastic. So thank you both for that. So we're gonna move on to hopefully some questions from our listeners, Zoe, if we have any. Have we got any that have come through yet?
Yeah, we have got a few here. So first of all, and this could be for both of our presenters really, somebody called Tony is asking a question about training. How much training you provide your analysts on a yearly basis?
Good question. Anybody want to take that, guys?
I'll start with this, if you like.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So when we initially get a new member in, we spend 3 weeks training them, and that is part of the core login tool, customer service, pitch and tone service, quality, and it's also involving a break-fix workshop. So it's looking at a more practical element to it, and understanding and learning the technical aspects of the role. But then obviously throughout the year, it's important to keep that going. So we've got a Skillport platform, which is an e-learning platform, and they can actually do that at any point in their idle times or in their free time outside of work or in work. And then each agent has a training budget allocated to them, which can be used for either internal or external courses. So we've got a career framework platform, which means that for wherever they are within the business or wherever they'd like to go, it gives them a breakdown of the training that's essential for them to get there. And then we'll allocate them time offline throughout that month to make sure that they can actually achieve that. So it can be as little or as much as they want. We'll empower them to do it. We want them to take control over that and feel passionate about it. We don't want it to appear like a chore, but we do that on a regular basis, and that will be open to them on a weekly and monthly rota.
That's very interesting, and again, very comprehensive. I think certainly, I understand the best practice standard intimately, right? Luckily enough, and it's quite a good read, and it's quite challenging to know it intimately. And of course, it's at 5-star level. That's part of what you guys do. So 3 weeks training, induction, a 3-week induction process. Now, I'd be hard pressed, I think, to find that out there in an organization that may have not gone through this certification program. An e-learning platform, a training budget, which is amazing. So you get the guys get an opportunity to invest their own training budget in their own training. Is that correct?
That is, yes. So they'll have to come to us with a course that they want to study and why they want to do it, what benefit we think that it'll have. So they have to put together their own sort of little business plan, and that gets signed off by their manager, and then they can go ahead with that budget and continue with that course.
Yeah, very good. Again, there's ownership, isn't there? There's an outcome. There's a purpose to all that, which is pretty cool too. Same question, maybe Naveed. I don't know if you've got anything as comprehensive as that. I don't know, to be honest. But how do you approach training, Naveed?
Yeah, of course, David. So in a similar way to the CGI guys, we have a 1-week induction for our service desk analysts. We also have a training fund, which people, again, similar to how CGI have it. They come forward with any kind of training for personal development that they want, and we would support them. We would sign that off, and we would fund some of that, and they would fund some of that themselves. Along with that, we also have our basic Itil foundation, which everybody in the service management organization is given the opportunity to attend. We also have our guys attending the SDI training. So we have them attending the service desk analyst training. Our managers are qualified from a service desk manager perspective from an SDI training. And we find that really useful for them, not only to learn what the best practice is, but also to network with like-minded individuals. While some of the management team who have been on these courses have come back feeling like they've really had the opportunity to share with people who have the similar role, albeit in a different company. So yeah, the focus is on annual training for us. We have an annual training plan that's released, which gives everybody the opportunity to attend at least one course for personal or career development. So yeah, similar, David, but the SDI training for us has been quite a useful tool.
Yeah, that's again various synergies, which and I'm loving the fact that there are guys. And if you think about it, you know, logically, because you guys are in the same program, that best practice should be adopted in a way that's fit for your organization. So to see that you've got very similar approaches to investing in training is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And you're right. I think the SDM and SDA training, coupled with Itil, certainly, you know, everybody talks the same language, which is pretty cool. Thank you for that. So training again is a very key emphasis area, I think, for a world-class service. Any other questions there, Zoe?
Yeah, we have. We've got a few actually coming through. So yeah, we'll get through as many of these as we can. Thanks everyone for posting them. So the next one is for Lyssa, and Antoinette is asking, do you use MPS for your external customers? And if not, what satisfaction measures do you use?
Hi, so we have our internal measures, but we do have a customer satisfaction survey that goes out, and we are on average over 90% every month, and for the year we've got some contracts which are 97, 98%.
Wow.
And as part of that process, the client will get asked 5 key questions, and then they can actually have 5 bespoke questions to them, which will get sent out to the client, which will be specific to their business. We'll then review that, and once that comes in, so that comes in the day after them completing it, and we have 24 hours to contact the user, find out what's happened, how we can improve, and put a proactive solution in place for future. So that is throughout the service desk. We have a customer satisfaction champion on the desk as well. So we like to get our team leaders and some of our more experienced agents to engage with us on some of the champion roles. And we then, separate to that, have a client satisfaction program, which our client-facing teams will participate in, and they will have a year-to-date figure against that client satisfaction measurement, and they will actually sit down with the client directly and talk about service improvements and what we've done in the past 12 months and what we can do going forward.
Excellent, thank you. And again, very clear, articulate focus on that, I think is fair to say. 90% is a very high constant to have in a customer satisfaction survey, which is really cool. And I'm loving the fact, again, if you look at the standard, we talk about a time scale on feedback, and you've got a 24-hour turnaround, which again brings you back to the consistency of service capability against what the standard contextualizes, which is fantastic to hear. Again, Naveed, same question, please.
Yeah, again, we're very similar. Our customer satisfaction sits at above 90%, with very satisfied customers sitting between 60 to 70%. And on the back of the feedback that we receive, like I said earlier, we're very focused on that customer piece. We have a dedicated number of people within the service desk team who are responsible for picking up that feedback on a weekly basis, and again, responding to the customer within 24, 48 hours. And we also use the customer satisfaction feedback to feed into our problem management process. So what we do is we look at asking the customers a question around whether they've had the issue before or how often they've had the issue, and then we collate those details and it feeds into the problem management process. We also have we have a plan from a customer satisfaction perspective, which feeds into our continual improvement planning. So we identify key themes that are coming through from a customer satisfaction perspective, and those are grouped together, and we build continual improvements on the back of those as well.
That's really cool. Really cool. And again, you know, you'd expect that, wouldn't you, from a 5-star service to have a comprehensive approach, an approach that somebody can articulate in service operations very, very clearly. So thank you for that. Again, Zoe, any more questions?
Yep. So next one here is from Busan, and he's asking, do you have any processes, or can you tell us a bit about the processes that you've put in place to help standardize responses?
Again, either you guys, whoever wants to pick it up first.
Responses from a customer satisfaction perspective?
I think this was before the customer satisfaction discussion, so I think in terms of responses to you know, service requests in general.
Okay,
So is that, let's just be clear, sorry guys, sorry. Is that the processes involved with sort of the management of life cycle of calls? Is it incident management or request management processes? Just read that again for me, Zoe, sorry. Give me that one again.
Yeah, that's okay. It says, do you have any processes that have been put in place to standardise all response? So I read response as being, you know, the service, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Naveed, I don't know if you can feel that one. So certainly from a process perspective, right, I think we can certainly talk about maybe your approach to process adherence maybe, and to process alignment with best practice, and how you manage to keep the quality of that going maybe?
Yeah.
And I think probably approach that from a perspective, okay, so when we have a remedy portal. We use Remedy for our ITSM toolset capability, and we have a portal which allows users to submit incidents or submit requests. I mean, the first point of standardization is the questions that we ask to make sure we capture the right detail at the first point of contact. Secondly, when that request then generates an incident or a request, we have a standard template which it connects to ensure our guys who are dealing with it and picking it up consistently deal with it in the same manner regardless of who picks that up. So yes, looking at that from a customer perspective, again, it's about keeping it as standard and as consistent as possible in terms of the service that we deliver. So hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, that's cool. And again, Lyssa, you know, obviously there are frameworks out there, guys, or there are standards out there. There's 20,000, there's 9,000, there's all these wonderful 27,000. How do you sort of manage all that sort of process adherence and the quality around process itself?
Yeah, so we've got our own dedicated quality and auditing team. So as part of that, with our ISO audits and things like that, we'll have internal as well as external audits, which will get reviewed on a regular basis every 6 months. And that just means that we're adhering to policies. So, for example, every team leader will get audited, every ops manager, and that means that we are all applying the correct auditing process, regardless if we're the ones actually subject to that external audit. So that's very powerful for us. And sort of picking up from what Naveed said earlier, we also use the Remedy tool, ironically, and we've got our quality team who will make sure that the knowledge base that we have is consistent amongst the teams, that it shows a consistent level of tech. And then they'll also have quality evaluations on the level of ticket notes details, and to make sure that that's to a satisfactory level that we would expect to be displayed to our customers. So it is just making sure that it's consistent across everyone. Yeah,
and you mentioned knowledge there as a thing. Naveed, I suppose, or both you guys, how do you manage knowledge? Knowledge is one of those things, right? I think certainly when I go into organizations, some do it very well, some do it very poorly. It is an overhead, I think, you know, when you're managing knowledge and it's active, it's working knowledge, to manage that can be a bit of an overhead, especially when it's very, very busy. So what does knowledge mean to you both guys from a management perspective, from a value perspective? How do you manage that?
So I'll go first. Knowledge for us is a key to, again, that consistent service that we deliver, because people who are supporting our customers need to have that knowledge readily available. And again, we make that readily available within our ITSM toolset. But not only that, we push the ownership of the knowledge to the guys who know it best. I mean, if you think about it, the guys who are dealing with these issues know about the common fixes, they know about the common issues people are facing. So each one of our knowledge articles has a knowledge owner. And in between the knowledge owner and it being published, we have somebody who monitors the quality of articles that are being published, and also manages the update of that knowledge through regular meetings and conversations with people who own the knowledge articles. So we've definitely got a very well embedded process around knowledge to ensure it stays up to date and relevant.
Good. And similarly, Lyssa, the way that you guys manage knowledge in a similar sort of context, how does that work for you?
Well, I think Naveed's just borrowing my answers now, to be honest. We're getting very
That's why
similar.
I'm going first, Lyssa.
That's right.
But yes, again, but again, we'll have a librarian per team, which we call an owl librarian, because that's what our knowledge base is based on, and that can be a SharePoint or a wiki page or whatever the desk feel comfortable using. So they are empowered to go out and do it. As Naveed said, they know far more than I probably ever will in respect to tech and the clients, because of how many there are. So it's very important that they have something that they're comfortable following in respect to the guidelines. We'll have a quality review of that again then, and we also send our teams out on client visits quite regularly, where they will take that particular guide with them and make sure that it's still relevant to that client's business. So it's one thing for us to move on, but obviously a client's business and the change and feel of their departments will alter every year. So it's important then that we're keeping up with that as well. But yes, it's very much a group activity, and one that they're completely confident in undertaking.
Excellent. Well, do you know, we've almost reached time. I can't believe how quick it's gone, to be honest. And I don't think, I think we've only scratched the surface on what a world-class service encompasses, what it entails. And obviously, from both your perspectives, how long your organizations have been working to build that world-class service as well. If I may, and Zoe, if we have any more questions, what I think we could do maybe is just see if we can answer those in slower time and maybe put them up on the website somewhere. That will be pretty cool if we can. I'm going to ask one last question, if I could, guys, and this is a very practical one. I'm going to ask each of you the same question. What are your top 3 tips to help creating a world-class service? If you were to start from scratch tomorrow, what 3 things would you start with?
I'll go first, David. So number 1 for me is get familiar with the standards of the SDI. Really get underneath them and get yourself comfortable with exactly what it is that you need to achieve in those areas. And let's be honest, you won't achieve everything, but it's about aligning yourself and adopting where possible the standards. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the people. Get the people on side, and I'm talking about people from all levels of the business. You need to get the team engaged so they feel like really it's their piece of work that they're driving. It's their standard that they're going to achieve, so they've got a stake in it. Just get senior people, senior stakeholders engaged and make sure they understand the value that it's going to deliver. And finally, continual improvement. Use the gap analysis that the audit process provides to really drive home that continual improvement and implement improvement where needed. So those are 3 things for me, David.
Excellent, thank you, Naveen. And the same question, Lyssa, if I may.
Yes, of course. So first for me, personally, I'm quite process driven. So I would definitely recommend setting out each of the standards and put down against each whether you feel that you're meeting it or not. So it gives you a complete comprehensive breakdown of where you are against them, whether that's 3, 4 or 5 stars. That's a very important tip. Secondly, then I would say it's that transparency element. So making sure that you're communicating that out to your teams. It's all right to say to people that you're not quite meeting all the standards at the moment, and it's about making that a group activity and empowering them then to enhance their knowledge so that you can put that through. And then third, as Naveed said, it is that service improvement element. So it's going out to your clients, engaging with them and engaging with people among your teams, and looking to see how you can improve as a business and as an employer.
Good, excellent, guys. So I think certainly for me, it's been interesting, really interesting to listen to how there are synergies, how best practice, can be created from something like SDI standard, but how you adopted it and approached that in a service environment as well. I think some of the key sort of things that have come out of today, I think CSI probably has been mentioned in every other sentence, which is incredible. So the focus on CSI, customer, the focus on the customer, the focus on training, on collaboration, not just internally, but cross collaboration as well, cross-functional, transparency, people, pride, a big part of it, quality assurance and knowledge, and all that creating value, being able to articulate value to the organization. So that's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed that one, guys, and maybe we should do a few more of these at some point. And I'm sure I'd like to think the audience has taken some really great insight from that too. So I'd like to thank Lyssa from CGI, and I'd like to thank Naveed from O2 Telefonica for joining us today. Thank you, guys, and we'll be speaking soon, so thank you for that. And thank you for sharing stories. Brilliant, thank you. And obviously the inspiring journeys that both organisations have taken to become world class. I'd also like to thank Zoe as well from SDI for managing the webinar, and thank you to the guys who stayed on right to the end, which has been brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. So thank you to our listeners for taking the time out to join us today. We hope you've enjoyed today's session. I certainly have. It's been really brilliant actually, and I hope you've learned something new, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from everyone from SDI, and good luck. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.